Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm really glad you could join me today. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or on Podomatic, you can come to womenentrepreneursecrets.com, and you can also click on the radio tab in the menu, and you can see other platforms the show is on, like Libsyn. There's some of the older shows being moved there from Blog Talk Radio, and there's also shows that are on YouTube. If you like to listen when you're on there, you can find different links there for the shows, depending on where you like to listen to your podcasts. And also you can also share your feedback on iTunes if you would like to give the show review, or you can share your feedback on the blog. That's fine too. There's a place there where you can send me a message. And also the shows are posted on the blog as well, so that you can leave a message there as well if you have feedback to leave. So really glad to hear from you and know how you like the shows, and if you have any suggestions for other things you'd like to hear as well. So we're going to get started with my guest today. And Krissi Barr's dynamic presence, instinctive strategic vision, and creative thinking produce effective, sustainable bottom-line results for her clients. Krissi's can-do attitude generates confidence in her executive coaching clients and strategic consulting corporate clients. Throughout Krissi's career, she's increased the profitability of nearly every organization with which she's worked. And Krissi is the founder of Barr Corporate Success and author with her husband Dan Barr of the Fido Factor, How to Get a Leg Up at Work. It's a dog-themed book that teaches the business leadership lessons we learn from man's best friend. So welcome to the show, Krissi.
Thank you for having me, Deb. It's wonderful to be here.
So, we were chatting a bit about, your enthusiasm, you and your husband for writing this book. And I was saying that it was really, I thought, a very clever way to frame this to make it very interesting for people who may be reluctant to pick up a leadership book thinking, here's more something dry that I have to get through. It really make it accessible. I really love the idea. So, I just wanted to start off and ask you what inspired you to say, okay, we're going to write a leadership book and present it in this way?
Well, what inspired us to write the book was we wanted to find a way to express all the attributes that somebody needs to do in order to be a fantastic leader. My business, I do executive coaching, and I started noticing what separated the successful coaches and successful leaders were those attributes that were found in our dogs. And I must confess that I'm in love with my dogs. So when we started writing the Fido Factor, we really wanted to set out to make it a leadership book that was approachable and relatable. And almost half of all American families, 54 million families, have dogs. So like a gummy vitamin, the Fido Factor is a unique combination of seriousness and fun with over 380 practical business takeaways combined with a healthy dose of canine cuddliness.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh my goodness. Yeah, because dogs they're obviously very popular, and I even follow an account on Twitter that shows like puppies and all these kinds of things. So,
well, this is not a cute little book about puppies, and it's not going to teach you how to beg. It is a serious roadmap to leadership success with dogs as your guides.
So yes, I'm glad you made that clear for anybody who thinks, okay.
Well, we had a lot of fun when we were coming up with the name. It was the Fido Factor, Leadership Unleashed, Fido Factor what? And finally we thought we have to put some fun in the title, How to Get a Leg Up at Work. And so we're not telling people you need to lift your leg. We're saying how to get a leg up at work, because getting a leg up means to get some kind of advantage, whether it's getting promoted or beating the competition. So we had a lot of fun with the title as well.
Well, that's true, though. It really does fit very well. And just reading through the points and everything, how they line up, it just makes so much sense. You're like, yeah, of course.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people might think the idea of leadership lessons from a dog may seem crazy, but dogs at work have the same effects on people as excellent leaders. And while there aren't any canine CEOs, dogs are naturals at exhibiting the traits needed to be leader of the pack. See, it's rich of lines like this that are just so applicable. When you look at your dog, you're going to see this.
Right. Oh my goodness. And it's just so perfect, so like, okay, I'm already ready to hear more about it, because I'm already, engaged in it and just kind of picturing it all. So, I really want to go over the 4 qualities, because what was, I realized after looking at them, they start with, letters that spell the word Fido. I was like, oh my goodness.
What are the odds? What are the odds that the 4 main attributes that any leader has to have would spell Fido? It's uncanny. And this was uncovered after thousands of hours of throwing balls and rubbing bellies that we came up with what these attributes would be from this incredible research. And faithful is the first Fido factor, F. Faithful leaders earn trust by doing the right things and living up to their word. The I is inspirational. Inspirational leaders move people to do the meaningful and extraordinary. The D stands for determined, and determined leaders combine perseverance with a dose of fearlessness to keep moving towards their goals. And the O stands for observant. Observant leaders are committed to taking in as much information as possible to make the best decisions. So we can drill down to each one of those and what they mean. But those are the factors: faithful, inspirational, determined, and observant that make up the Fido factor.
When you hear those words, you really have an idea exactly of what those qualities are. It's not something that's really obscure that you just try to figure out what that means, So I think that even, makes it even more perfect to me that I can get it right away from that. So, do you want to just start out kind of maybe expanding on the points a little bit?
If you form a bond with a dog, you'll have a faithful friend forever, someone you can depend on and someone who will depend on you no matter what, and they'll defend you no matter what. When you're regarded as faithful, it means you've earned trust and you can be relied on. So faithful leaders are loyal, trustworthy, and caring. They do the right thing even when no one is watching. They defend their pack no matter what. They do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. They put the needs of the customers and team members ahead of their own, and they invest time in building and growing relationships. They intentionally grow relationships. They show loyalty to others in a multiple of ways, and they confront problems and have the courage to confront problems and speak the truth.
And, just kind of thinking back on, I guess, on managers I've worked for, and when I've had that kind of leader, then it just changes the whole dynamic, because then people want to do things and they want to do more and they want to come together, because there's all this camaraderie and loyalty and all those things that maybe you may not find other places because of the way people are acting, or maybe the leadership really isn't there. But when it is there, you can really see the difference.
Oh, you can feel it, Deb. You're absolutely right, because unfaithful people may succeed in the short term, but they will never earn the trust and create the deep commitment of their team to be successful over the long haul. Mm-hmm. And that matters because your career and reputations are the product of your years of personal interactions and delivering results.
So it really matters how you present yourself, and you're building on that trust. So then that's going to help you in your career, and then inspire other people who, if you're not projecting those things, again, going back to my experiences, people who didn't, maybe they suddenly want to want people to pull together on a project, but then the glue wasn't there holding people together, and they were very skeptical, and they didn't really put their all in, and they just kind of felt resentful a lot of times.
Absolutely. And people, like dogs, crave friendships and positive interactions. And when they have a good interaction, they're going to want to repeat that over and over again. So little things like saying, do I have a best friend at work? And getting to know what makes other people tick and finding out what they enjoy in their spare time, learning about their family and uncovering what you have in common, all are ways that you can build faithfulness.
That's true. And I think, again, the person who I was thinking about in the beginning, he was very personable, who you could just talk to. It wasn't always just business, actually, but at that time I was working in the admissions office at a law school, so it wasn't necessarily corporate, but he ran his department in a way that people really felt like it was a close-knit group of people. It was just such a different environment.
So the next, tying into faithful, really close to it, is inspirational. And when we think of dogs, dogs are naturally inspirational. They make us feel good, they lift our spirits, and they energize us. They're selfless, they're motivational, and they have a tail that always speaks the truth. You can tell when it's happy if it's wagging, and guilty it curls down under shame. And when we think about it, to maximize your leadership role, you have to inspire greatness in others by getting them to believe that they can do whatever they thought was impossible. So inspiration moves people to do that extraordinary, and inspirational leaders will see where they need to be in the future. And one of the things that inspirational leaders understand is that inspiration to each person is unique. What inspires you, Deb, is different than what inspires me, and yet they find a way to bring out the best in people. And if you think of dogs are always on a mission, whether they're chasing a ball or whether they're doing a search and rescue mission, and they're always out there to figure out what it is that's meaningful that they need to do and aspirational. So when I think of an inspirational leader, I think of inspirational leaders as being motivational, encouraging, enthusiastic, helping others achieve greatness, painting the picture of what success looks like, that vision, that they really need to know that vision, and communicating with clarity and exuding a positive can-do and will-do mindset and overcoming and dealing with adversity. They're servant leaders who don't multitask, and they make some personal sacrifices.
That's interesting. So I'm guessing it would be really hard not to multitask.
Oh my gosh. When you multitask, you are lowering your IQ to that of an impaired driver. Takes you 4 times as long to complete something as when you're focused, and your error rate increases by 2. More importantly, if you're multitasking in front of somebody, you're telling them essentially that whatever it is you're doing is more important than them. And when you think of it, dogs aren't multitaskers. They focus on one thing at a time, whether they're eating, whether they're chasing a ball, whether they're herding sheep. They are not multitasking. And we can learn from that and be present and be fully in the moment, which ties into mindfulness as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Imagine watching, dogs and their focus, really. But it seems like for a lot of people, they're always so torn between so many different things they're doing, and or they're there supposedly talking to you and they're checking their phone, and it's like
it's a different place to be. And one of my favorite images of my dog, I had a white dog named Santa Claus, CLAWS. He was my favorite picture of him was taken from the front seat looking into the side view mirror. And there was Santa, head hanging out of the back seat during a ride, joy radiating from his face. He loved car rides, and running down to the pet store to get a bag of dog food was not particularly exciting for me, but for him it was bliss. And he lived in the moment, and we can learn from that from our dogs, that making sure that we live in the moment and not constantly overwhelmed by multitasking and sending the message that nothing's really important because everything's important. That's
really a good point. That's such a good point, because that just reminds me of a project leader I had once when I worked in IT, and I was like, well, I needed to know what the priorities were, and she says, well, like everything's a priority.
And it's the interesting thing, Deb. The word priority actually means singular. It means one. So there really is not a true word that is priorities. You can't have several ones. It's like, well, I've got 15 ones to do. Number one thing. It doesn't happen. And inspirational leaders are also very happy. They will spread that happiness with others. And people are inspired by happy. When you look happy, you look confident. And when you look confident, you look competent. And especially us as women leaders, we need to make sure that happiness is a choice. And when we show we're happy, it is as contagious as fleas in a good way with other people. So that attitude, that positive mindset is everything. And yes, negative events happen, but we control the outcome by how we think and act, and by focusing on what we do want versus what we don't want.
That's true, because if the leader is kind of a downer and everything's negative and nothing's going to work, people really aren't going to be inspired by that at all. So.
Oh, and that whole vision aspect. I was working years ago with a woman who owned a major restaurant franchisee, and employee engagement was pretty low. And so we examined the vision statement, and the vision statement was way too long. Nobody knew what it was. And we developed a new one called Nourishing People. And we started living that nourishing people culture. The cooks and the employees, they all believed they were doing something important. And you had to treat your coworkers in a nourishing way. That applied to managers and how they treated people. And they were expected to engage and interact in a nourishing way. They let go of people who were not behaving in a nourishing way. And in 2 years, their employee engagement had more than tripled. So retention is up and profits are strong. So that important of being an inspirational leader and living your vision that, yes, we are going to nourish people. We're going to nourish them with our well-loved food, and we're going to nourish each other in a positive way with how we speak and how we respect each other, goes a long way for profits, but more importantly, just for the joy of what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yes, that's true. I think a lot of times people miss that idea that when it's people feel a certain way about what they're doing and they're leaders and they're going to be more productive. I think, I can just speak from my own experience and feel better about what you're doing and want to support each other. It's a whole, chain of things that work together, so that's a really important points to make. I totally.
Well, one of the things that ties into that as well is how you live your daily life in leadership, and building routines. Inspirational leaders will build routines into their time management. They become creatures of habits. And when we think about it, dogs are the masters of routines. They go out at the same time every day. They sniff the same trees. They bring in the newspaper in the morning. And successful leaders have disciplined habits to achieve their goals. And for example, I build into routines getting up and working out at 5:15 in the morning, because that is the only time I don't need to be a worker. I don't need to be a mother. I don't need to be a volunteer. I don't need to be a wife. And those routines in our time management should serve us both at work and personally. So at the office, maybe scheduling your one-on-ones or your weekly meetings at the same time every week, so you spend more time in those meetings and less time scheduling and rescheduling and trying to get everybody together and herding cats. I know it's a dog book, but if you're constantly scheduling and rescheduling, you're herding cats.
Yes. That's definitely how it is felt at times. In some cultures I've worked in, the meetings all the time is always a meeting, so it always seems like you're spending more time chasing people and trying to get them into a meeting than you're actually doing anything.
Well, and then you have the time, instead of scheduling and canceling, and especially if you cancel, you're not trusted because people go, oh, they're going to cancel that meeting anyhow.
Right.
But if you have that time, you have more time to be a servant leader. And the best inspirational leaders know that leadership is a follower-based model. And dogs, again, have proven themselves uniquely capable of incredible feats of service to humans. There are bomb-sniffing dogs, police and military dogs, search and rescue. There are life-saving therapy dogs that predict when somebody's going to have an epileptic seizure or sniff out cancer, and, of course, the seeing eye dog. But in many ways, each of us as a leader plays that role of service dog from time to time. And when we see a coworker facing a challenge, we try to assist. And sometimes we can help fix the problem, but often all we can do is just lend an ear and show we care. And that is why people will follow an inspirational leader, because they know that they are there for them.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. It's just a better environment altogether when you have someone like that. So, what are your thoughts about determined leaders?
Well, determined leaders, when you think about leadership, requires relentless determination to reach your goals. So, again, leadership requires relentless determination to reach your goals. And dogs mix that perseverance with a fearless result attitude and resolute. They're going to do it no matter what. They know that they control their destinies by their actions, and determined leaders just won't give up. When they encounter an obstacle, they figure a way around it, ergo the phrase, doggedly determined. They say to themselves, if I can't do it this way, how else can I do it? They don't just say, okay, I'm going to go home, I can't do it. They focus on what matters most, and they finish what they start. So determined leaders are persistent, they're disciplined, they're accountable. They never give up. They keep their list of goals short and make them priorities. They know that they have to assemble a championship team using a rigorous hiring process. They keep a focus on what matters most and avoid distractions. They know that procrastination is their enemy. They're continuously learning and training. They apologize and they forgive so they can move on, and they concentrate on the future, not the past. They also own their outcome, and they're decisive and act with urgency.
Wow.
A lot to being a determined leader.
Yeah.
They know time is money. They know we have 168 hours a week, and they focus on what's the most important things to do in those 160 hours a week, and they never schedule more than 80% of their time because they want to leave some time open for unanticipated events. And they mark their territories. If you think of a fire hydrant, the dog marks that and says, yep, that's mine. And a determined leader will say, I own this. I'm accountable for it. And a determined leader will also say no. And you think about it, when we tell a dog no, we are telling him that we want it to stop doing something. And part of a determined leader goes, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't play to the most important things I need to get done.
Do you think that sometimes saying no is tough for people in these roles, because for some people they may feel they have to do it all and conquer it all? And
I think saying no is one of the hardest things that people have, and particularly women have a tough time saying no because we want to please people. We want to be the hero. It somehow makes us feel good when we've got a long list of things to do. That said, determined leaders visualize how good it will feel to achieve their goals, and they say no or not now to any distractions. And I learned this lesson best when I was going through cancer. And I only had a certain amount of energy. I didn't miss one day of work. I worked every single day while I was going through chemo. And I had to say no to some of the things in the evenings. Those political fundraisers I really didn't want to go to. Those meetings that just weren't absolutely necessary that I needed to go. And the most determined and successful leaders say no more often than they say yes. And it's hard. I'll give you an example. One of the things that in my role as an executive coach, people will reach out to me when someone's in between jobs. And I think that's one of the toughest things anybody can go through, is to look for a job. So I will always say yes. But I started realizing how much time I was spending helping people find jobs. So I changed it and said, I like to walk my dogs around 7 o'clock at night. If you want to come over and bring some gym shoes over and we can walk and talk and brainstorm, I'd be happy to. Once I put it out there that let's go for a walk with my dogs and we can walk and talk, I went from having several requests a week to having zero. And in the probably 8 years that I've been doing that, only one person has ever taken me up for a dog walk. So I'm not saying no, but I'm putting it around the parameters that I don't want that cup of coffee. I don't want that glass of wine. I don't want to plop and sit after I've been at work all day long. I want to move around and take a walk. Mm-hmm. And so I do it on my terms, and people don't want to do it on those terms. Like, all I'm doing is saying, go for a walk. It's flat. It's not going to be a marathon. I'm not making you climb a mountain. Just go for a walk. I'll even hold both the leashes.
Wow. I'm surprised, because I would have thought a few people would have said, oh, great, we can walk around and talk and think.
One person, and that's one of the most important lessons that cancer taught me, was it gave me permission to say no, and I've continued to say no. And and again, the most successful people say no more often than they say yes, because the more successful you become, the more people are going to ask you for things, and that's a compliment, and we feel good. But I've always limited to 2 boards. I'll serve in 2 boards at any given time. I do 2 pro bono strategic planning sessions, and I already have them booked for 2018. So I believe in giving back, but I have to also make sure that I take care and renew my own energy too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. I think that gets missed a lot. As you said, women often want to please people, and then if you get more successful and have more people approaching you, some people may feel a little guilty, and others may feel like, oh, now I'm in a position to help everyone, and then they're overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're not good to themselves. They're not good to their families. And it was funny when I did a time audit, and that's the best way to figure out where you spend your time, is to do a time audit. And I realized I was spending all this time on things that were not a priority. And the first book was delayed by a year because of things that were not priorities. And so when I started exiting those things from my calendar was when I really got the things done that I wanted to do. And my income doubled, quite frankly, when I began to focus and started saying no more often than I said yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense, though. That makes sense. But, the way the time goes by so fast, and you're thinking you're focusing on one thing, and then there's all these other things that you're probably actually doing, and you don't even realize it, because, as you said, you're not auditing the time and really knowing where it's all going. So. But,
there's some interesting statistics. June issue of Training and Development magazine, June 2017 issue, has some stats that women in Fortune 500 companies, only 44% of the total employees are women. But if you go down all the way to CEOs, only 6% are CEOs, and only 20% of board seats are filled by women. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at this, companies that have women in significant positions will perform better than those that don't. And so we need to make sure that we're saying no so we can get to those higher level positions where we can do the really important work that we need to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. And that's certainly built on saying no to a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is an Ernst & Young statistic, but companies with more than 30% of women in the C-suite can add 6% net profit to their profit margin. And so this is important. We have to make sure that we're doing the most important things. And yet, as I was going through my career, if I think about being determined, one thing I wasn't going to miss was any of my son's sports games. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't miss any of them. And that was an important part of life. And because the cat's in the cradle, again, back to cats again, but the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, those days will go by. And my son now is 30 and lives in Atlanta, and I would love to go to a basketball game and watch him play, or a soccer game. And I'm so glad I didn't miss that. And often I see women who are constantly on, and they say, well, I'll just miss this one. I'm like, don't miss that one, because you will never be able to get that time back again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's all very important, as you were saying again about the priorities, or priority. Because it's right. Really one thing. Yeah, that's so important.
And one thing determined leaders don't forget is that they celebrate the successes. They praise. And when you think of a dog, when you praise them, they're going to want to have that same wonderful experience again, so they're going to perform again. And we as leaders have to make sure that we celebrate the successes that people have, so that they're going to want to reinforce those same good behaviors. And determined leaders also know that continuous learning is a must because of so much change. And yes, you can teach old dogs new tricks, and seasoned employees can teach those young pups about experience-based skills, and the young pups can teach the seasoned employees about, how to post an app on social media. There's things that they can teach as well. So determined leaders understand and really incorporate praise and learning in their daily lives.
Yes, that's true. I think that's also very important, because a lot of times people will focus on what someone hasn't done, and just not as you said, reinforce the good behavior is really key.
And Deb, one of the ways to do that, if somebody hasn't done something, you can say, "Oh, you haven't done this." And they're going to go home and they're going to say, "Oh, Krissi went home and Krissi told me today I didn't do this." Or I can say, "Susan, you've done this, this, and this. Now let's add this to all the things that you're doing." And she's going to go home. Susan will go home and I said, "Krissi told me I was doing all these things really well. I just now need to add something to it." So you're adding to versus didn't do, and it makes a world of difference.
That's true. It comes out totally differently. People will focus, of course, on the negative thing that you point out to them. The one negative, even though they're positive, so it's how you frame it and how you present it to people, then they can hear it in a whole different way.
It's focusing, as Marshall Goldsmith says, it's focusing forward instead of feedback.
That's true. That's an excellent way to put it. So, I want to talk about observant leaders, but first, could you please share where people can find out more about you and find your books?
Sure. To find out more about me, you can go to KrissiBarr.com, and that's spelled KRISSIBARR.com. And to get a copy of the Fido Factor, it's on Amazon. So all you have to do is go to Amazon and type in the Fido Factor, and you'll see the book.
Exactly. It's very easy. You just go to Amazon. You'll find just about everything at this point. So that's for sure. So, when you come to observant leaders, what are your thoughts around them?
Sure. Observant leaders are constantly looking for more information. And when you think of dogs, they're highly observant. They use all their senses, watching, sniffing, and listening for meaning, and then they make their decisions. Observant leaders are perceptive. They're aware. They're curious. They ask meaningful questions. They spot problems earlier because they're paying attention to the details others aren't seeing, and they see opportunities sooner than others too. So they're using their senses. They're reading the body language, thinking about when something doesn't smell right. They're really listening, and dogs listen at multiples higher than we do. So they're listening for the tone to understand the true meaning of a message. And they don't interrupt, and they are very self-aware of their behaviors.
That's really interesting, because of observant, to really observe, people have to also be able to listen and take in information. That's really the key, so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on.
Well, and when you think about that, on all the senses, we only hear up to 20 kilohertz. Dogs hear up to 45, so they hear way more than we do. Seeing, we see 180 degrees, they see 270 degrees, so they see more than we do. And when it comes to smelling, 40 times more of their brain is devoted to decoding smell, and they have 50 times more olfactory receptors in their nose. And the seeing part is kind of an interesting thing, because even though we humans, dogs rather, even though dogs don't see in black and white, they do see colors. Many of us humans think that way in black and white. Things are good or bad or right or wrong. And that binary way of approaching life, Deb, can help you be more decisive, but it blinds us to the colors that could exist. So I often say, open your eyes to the full spectrum to discover new ways and look for things from different angles. If we're all looking at a centerpiece on a table, I'm going to see the daisies that are on one side of that centerpiece, but you're going to see the roses on the other side of the centerpiece. And so we have to keep looking at things from different angles. And I'll give you an example. There was a wonderful woman that I was coaching. She was brilliant. She had built a $100 million company based on her incredible knack for the industry. She worked hard. She was a visionary. But despite all those problems, or those positives rather, When I met her, she was struggling. She had stopped listening to other points of views. She had stopped sniffing out new industry trends, and she had stopped looking for new ways of doing things. And she barked out orders, which intimidated those around her. She had no clue that people were scared about her and intimidated her. But after doing a 360, she realized she was the problem, and she began to make changes to her behaviors. It didn't happen overnight, and there were setbacks, but she did make the changes necessary to lead her team into the future. So that really brought to mind that observant leaders know that having a sense of how they come across to others is critical for their success. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, it can be career limiting.
And I think that, as far as picking up on a lot of different things, that's something I learned in the fashion industry, because I've been in a few industries, made some few career changes, and one of the things that they taught us when I was in school in FIT was, when it comes down to things like, of course, like fashion, that's always changing, you have to look at everything going on in society, everything going on around you. It's not just someone just sits down and just draws something. They're influenced by everything going on around them. And I thought that was really interesting, and that training has served me in other areas of my life, because then you realize, okay, this is happening here. There's usually some kind of a cause or something rippling somewhere else that's leading to that.
Well, you're absolutely right, Deb, because when you change your perspective, you will open your eyes and your mind to new things. We think 55,000 thoughts a day. I read this in an American Psychology journal. Mm-hmm. 50,000 of those thoughts are the same thought we thought yesterday. What time am I going to get up? Am I going to floss my teeth? And so I often say, to make your mind more open to new ideas, change your perspective, drive home a different way from work. When you go to the Thai restaurant you love, don't get the tofu pad Thai spice level 3, get the pad CU spice level 6. Listen to different music than you do. If you watch CNBC, watch Fox or vice versa, but really mix it up so that your brain is constantly looking for new ideas, because you can teach yourself to be innovative.
That's a good point. Yeah. I'm thinking about the Thai restaurant. I used to get the pad Thai.
Well, now you know my favorite Thai food, spicy level 3.
Well, I get the spice on the side, because you never know sometimes how hot it's going to be.
Well, I would be so remiss if I didn't talk about, for all their wonderful traits, we'd be making a big mistake if we always acted like a dog at work. There's some dogisms that'll get you in the doghouse, wearing the cone of shame, and some are making a mess, muddy paws, and of course there is no humping at work. We better make sure we don't do that. And no whining and no bitching either. But it's a perfectly legitimate word to use about a dog. It really is.
Yes, but it's like perfect, because you can picture each thing and know, okay, I get it.
So I have to say, just learn from your dog. There's some doggy don'ts, there's some doggy do's, but if you learn from your dog and be the leader that your dog would be proud of, you'll get best in show and get the blue ribbon.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
Now you can see why we had so much fun writing this book, because the Fido Factor is rich of ideas that are good leadership ideas, but it's presented in a very fun way that is, again, relatable.
Exactly. And I think that's important, because, as I mentioned before, so many books, at least I've seen, when I was in corporate, and sometimes they're giving you a book or something, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is not exactly something I want to read, or it just didn't seem to apply to, your kind of everyday life, unless you were an executive or someone, a fast track. You kind of felt like, well, what am I going to do with this? But everything you're saying, I think anybody can really take something from and apply it, to what they're doing, whatever that is.
Well, thank you, Deb. And one of the things that I would be curious about, and people can get my email, it's very easy. It's Krissi at KrissiBarr.com. So KRISSI at KRISSIBARR.com.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear what Fido Factors people have learned from their dogs. So I have 380 plus ideas within the book. I'm sure there are other ones that we hadn't thought about, so I would love to hear other people's Fido Factor ideas, what they've learned from their dogs.
Yes, yeah, so would I actually. So
we can get the conversation going.
Exactly, because there's so many ideas, and the way you're tying it together just makes perfect sense.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It was a stretch when I had the idea for the Fido Factor about dogs. My husband goes, "Dogs, really?" And then he came back and goes, "It's either going to be a brilliant idea because there are no mainstream leadership books that have dogs in them, or it's going to be the stupidest waste of time and money we've ever done." So we're 2 weeks into it right now, just a few weeks into it. So hopefully it's a good one.
Well, I think it definitely stands out, and you go like, oh, okay, let's hear more about this. So I think that really gets you. There's a hook there, and it's people like their pets and animals, and even though this isn't a book about pets necessarily, but it catches your attention, especially if you are a dog lover. I think you're gonna stop and think, okay, how is this working? Let me find out more about it. So I think that was very clever.
And one thing that the Fido Factor is doing as well is we're donating some of the proceeds to dog rescue organizations. So the Fido Factor will do some good deeds to some of our four-legged friends out there too.
And that's fantastic. So this has been a great conversation, and really a lot of fun. We just want to know, do you have any final thoughts of anything that we haven't covered, or anything that you want to just kind of summarize?
Well, thank you for that. I think, if you look at the Fido Factors, if you focus on being faithful, inspirational, determined, and observant, the 4 Fido Factors, you will get a leg up at work. And that's just the thing, is to always be thinking, am I being faithful to myself and others? Am I being inspirational to myself and others? Am I being determined to myself and others? And am I being observant? And really looking for the meaning in everything around you, and when people are interacting with you and trends, then you'll get a leg up. And when you just won't be in that zone of mediocrity, and it'll be a real difference in your career.
That's true, because a lot of times people don't have, embody these qualities, and maybe they just don't know enough, they don't have the guidance, and so someone who really does and is really trying to do some of these things is really going to stand out, I think, in a lot of ways in the workplace, or even with their own business. I think this is really terrific, Krissi.
There's one fun thing on the website that if you go to thefidofactor.com, there's an assessment that you can take, and you'll see your results, and you'll see if you need to work on being more faithful, inspirational, determined, or observant. So the Fido Factor assessment is there. It's free, and you can just see where you are, and you could have other people take it too.
Oh, that's great. Even better, so people can see how they measure up to.
Yeah, I'm really faithful, but gosh, I got to work on being more determined.
Oh my God, that's perfect. That's perfect. So, this has been a wonderful conversation, Krissi. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your book with us. Really, really enjoyed, and thanks so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Deb. I had a blast, and thank you again.
You're welcome.
I'm wagging my tail.
Oh my goodness. See, now I'm going to pay attention when I, see people. I don't have a dog, but when I see people walking their dogs, I'm really going to be paying a lot more attention to them now. I think I'm definitely going to be watching them very closely. So, this really has inspired me to check them out a little bit more. So everyone, I know you enjoyed the show. Please make sure you share it on social media. Please stop by Krissi's website, check out her book on Amazon, check out the assessment. Let folks know. Also to listen into the show, and to learn more about leadership and how you can apply it to your life and also to your work and your business. So once again, it's from Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you again next time. Bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website, WomenEntrepreneursSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.